When someone first begins to look at case knives, they may find themselves a little overwhelmed and a little puzzled, because case makes a lot of different patterns of knives, a lot of different models. Not only do you have different patterns and different models, you also have different handle materials. You got bone, you got pearl, you got abalone, you got synthetic, then you got all the different colors. Then on top of that, you've got all the different jigging patterns. You got kinfolk, you got barn board, you got peach seed, you got Rogers peach seed. You can go right down the line. You got crandall jig. And then you got different steels. You can get all kinds of different steels in case knives. The two most popular by far are going to be their stainless steel and their carbon steel, the 1095. But when somebody first begins to look at them, they can be overwhelmed by this. All the different patterns, you got Stockman, you got Trapper, then you got Mini Trapper, then you got Tiny Trapper, and then you got Panama Trapper, and then you got all these different Stockmans, and you got a copperlock, and you got Sodbuster, Sodbuster Jr. My point is that it can be overwhelming. And in this video, I want this to be kind of an introduction for somebody who's just getting into case knives, or looking at one, wanting to buy one, whether it's to collect, maybe you're a knife collector, or whether it's just to buy a good knife to use. This video, I'm going to try to explain some of the basics. And in this particular video, I am going to go over the most popular models. These are the most popular models, and if you're looking to get your first case knife, it should probably one of these. In another video, I'll talk more about handle materials and stuff like that, and blade steels and so on. But by looking at the most popular models the case sells, you'll be able to get a pretty good idea of what you're looking for and which one you should try first. I have all these knives are a different model. Some of these knives have a different kind of steel in them, and we also have different jigging patterns, and we have different materials. And so by looking at these knives here, we will get a good idea of what the case knife has to offer and the different options there are to get. We will begin by looking at the case Trapper. This is case's full-size Trapper, and every case knife is going to have a pattern number. This one, for example, you can see it says USA 6254. This is the 54 pattern. The first number is going to refer to the handle, whether it's made of bone or synthetic or whatever it might be. The next number is usually going to refer to the amount of blades, and then the numbers after that are going to be the pattern number. In case's full-size Trapper is a 54 pattern. This is going to be one of the knives that people will run into the most. These are very popular. The Trapper comes in at 4 1/8 inches long when it's closed. It's going to have 2 main blades for the most part. Almost every rule that I am about to say when it comes to patterns, there is a number of exceptions for. But in this video, I can't account for all the exceptions, so I'm going to deal with the general rules. So we got this one right here. Your main blade is going to be a clip point. And then you're going to have a second blade. Most trappers will have what's known as a spade blade on them, and that is this blade here. There are some others that will have a Warncliffe style blade. But this is your classic 54 pattern Trapper. One of the most popular knives that case sells, one of the most used knives over the years, and about the best work knife ever made. Wonderful knife. Being at 4 1/8 inches, it's big enough to get a full grip on it, to do whatever you need to do with it. This particular one has smooth bone handles on it. Almost looks like wood. It's a really good knife. There are multiple variations of the Trapper. This Trapper is known as a Slimline Trapper. You can see it just has a single blade, and it's considerably thinner than the full-size Trapper. That's why it's called the Slimline. You can see even the blade itself is narrower. These are great everyday carry knives. They're a lot lighter than the full-size Trapper, easier to carry in the pocket. The handle is still large enough to easily get a good grip on it and to hold it. It's comfortable in every position you need to hold it. Yet you're still getting enough blade to do whatever you need. So the Slimline Trapper is a popular pattern from Case. 31048. When you see a 3 beginning on a Case pattern number, that is referring to it having a yellow synthetic handle. The 1 is referring to this having only one blade. Go ahead and drop him there for a minute. But the 1's referring to this having only one blade. And then 048 is the pattern number for the Slimline Trapper. You'll see a lot of these, and this would be a very good first Case knife for somebody wanting to get into these. And you can see the contrast here between bone and synthetic. Your synthetics are going to be a little cheaper, but they are not necessarily inferior. They're just a little cheaper, and in some ways they are probably a little more durable. The last variation of the Trapper that we will look at here is this Mini Trapper. This one is going to be a downsized version of the full size. It's going to have the 2 blades just like the full size did, a main clip point and a secondary spay blade, but it's, instead of being 4 1/8 inches, it's going to come in at 3 1/2 inches when it's closed. Another thing that you'll find on the Mini Trapper is it has what's called a half stop. So the blade will click into place at a 90 position as you open it and close it. Some people out there in the traditional knife world really love half stops. I like them. They're a neat feature to have. They don't make the knife or break the knife in my opinion, but I do like them. You're going to have your main clip point blade, and you're going to have your secondary spay blade on the Mini Trapper. And the number on the Mini Trapper, as you can see, is 6207. 6 for the jigged bone handles, 2 for the fact that it's a 2-bladed knife, and 07 is the pattern number for Case's Mini Trapper. I do need to say that this Slimline Trapper here is just a speck under 4 1/8 inches long. But these are the 3 most popular variations of the Case Trapper. Your full-size Trapper, your Slimline Trapper, and your Mini Trapper. There are other variations out there, but they are not near as popular, so I'm not going to include them in this video. The next popular pattern we're going to take a look at that you're going to find with Case is going to be the Stockmans. There are a lot of Stockmans, but as a general rule, a Stockman is a 3-bladed knife with 2 back springs is generally the case, not always, but usually. So you'll have 2 springs on the back, and those 2 springs are going to operate 3 blades. This particular Stockman is an 18 pattern Stockman. I believe it's Case's most popular Stockman, and it's certainly one of the best everyday carry Stockmans. Your main blade is going to be a clip point blade. This is known as a California clip blade. Again, this knife will not have any half stops. Your secondary blade is going to be called a sheep's foot blade, and that right there is one of the best blades that you can have on a knife. See if I can get that to focus there. 6318. 6 for the blue bone handles. The 3 for the fact that this knife has 3 blades. And then 18 being the pattern for this knife. Then your third and last blade is going to be what's known as a spade blade, like the Trappers had on them. Just it's a small version of it. So what makes Stockman unique is that this blade, this sheep's foot, is bent. If you see, it's slanting. And it's slanted so it will fit between those other 2 blades. And so this is a Stockman, and this is a popular Stockman. These 18 patterns come in at 3 5/8 inches when they're closed. Around 3 5/8 inches. They're about the same size as the Mini Trapper, as you can see. They're slightly longer, but it's really not enough to tell it. But this is a Stockman. It's going to have the 3 blades, where the Trapper will generally have 1 or 2 full-size blades. A Stockman will have usually 3 smaller blades. This is the 18 pattern Stockman, and this is one of the best users that Case has ever made, in my opinion. This is another popular Stockman from Case. Case makes a lot of Stockmans, and a lot of them are really good, but I'm trying to look at the most popular. And from what I can tell, this is another really popular one. This is a 33 pattern Stockman. It's a little small knife. You can see how much smaller it is from the 18 pattern. It's the smallest knife that we've looked at so far. It only comes in at 2 5/8 inches when it's closed. Being a Stockman, you're going to get your main clip blade. Your secondary blade, again, is going to be a sheep's foot blade. There you can see the number, 6333. And you can see it's just a smaller version of this other knife. And then your third blade on this is going to be what's known as a pin blade instead of a spade blade. Just got a little different shape on the end. But yeah, if you're looking for a really light, everyday carry knife, and you're not doing much work with it, this is a good little knife. This is also the first knife we've shown that has a jigged synthetic. It's the same kind of synthetic as like this yellow Slimline Trapper, but it's got this jigging on it. These brown jigged Case knives are very durable, and they're a little cheaper than bone generally. Next, we move into a less, I guess you'd say, a less EDC friendly knife from Case, but a very popular one, and that's the tiny toothpick. This knife is about 3 inches when it's closed. It's a single blade knife with 1 back spring, and it has 1 clip blade in it. A lot of people really like the way these look, and I do too. They got a cool look to them, kind of unique. It's kind of a small, lightweight, light use knife. It's not made to do really hard tasks. It's got a thin little blade. But if you really need to get into something and to do some work on it, this is a good knife for you. I would not recommend this as a first Case knife, but nevertheless, a lot of people like these and will carry them. To me, it's just a little too small to carry. I would opt for this Stockman over this toothpick if I was looking at a first knife. But yeah, these toothpicks are cool knives, and they're very popular. Collectors love them. You're going to see a lot of these out there as you begin to look at Case knives. The next one that we're going to look at is going to be one of the most popular knives at this time, and that's called the Sodbuster. This knife comes in many variations. You can get them with bone handles, you can get thin ones, you can get thick ones. There's a lot of variation. There's even 2 sizes. There's the regular Sodbuster, which is Case's 38 pattern, and there's the Sodbuster Junior, which is Case's 37 pattern. This one right here is in black synthetic. They call it black Delrin, which is a common material, and it's a traditional material for this knife. This knife has had Delrin handles for way over a century. Half a century, way over half a century. You can see on the blade there, it's going to say stainless, Sodbuster Junior. This knife is going to come in at around that 3 5/8 inches. Also when it's closed. So it's about the same length as the 18 pattern Stockman, as you can see. And depending on the handle material you get, it will either be bulkier or thinner. You got 1 blade, and this is what a lot of people would call a Skinner blade. You can see the shape on it there. These knives are built really sturdy, and they're a work knife primarily, especially if you get one of the synthetic ones. 2137, the 2 stands for the black smooth synthetic, 1 to the fact that this is a single bladed knife, and 37 is the Sodbuster Junior. You can get these cheaper than any of these other knives that I've shown so far, and this would be a great knife to get you into Case knives. Get one of these synthetic user Sodbusters and use it and see what you think of it. You'll like it. It's a great knife. These are popular, and there's a reason they're popular. They're a great knife. The next one we're looking at is going to be the first locking knife out of Case's most popular that I'm aware of. This is by far Case's most popular locking knife. And this is called the mini copperlock. Now there is a bigger one out there, a larger brother, just called the copperlock. But this mini copperlock again comes in at that 3 and 5/8 inch mark. You can see it's about the same length as the 18 pattern Stockman again. What makes this unique is it is a single bladed knife, but you can see it's got a back lock. So when you open up the blade, that blade is going to lock into place. And you can't just push it closed like the others. You actually have to push this lever down here in the back for you to be able to close the blade. So that makes it where the blade won't fold up on you as easily. But a lot of people love these mini copperlocks. The bolster comes out a little bit, so it kind of gives you a place to put your finger, keeps your finger from slipping up on the blade. They're light, they're comfortable, they're super thin in the hand. They're a great everyday knife. These run a little more expensive. These are the most expensive, usually, out of all the knives that I've shown so far. But you can't go wrong with one of these. They're absolutely great built knives. And then the last knife that I'm going to show here is the Case Peanut. Peanuts are popular, and if you're looking for a small, lightweight knife to EDC, the Peanut's probably your best bet. This one here has red bone handles. A Peanut's going to have 2 back springs, and size-wise, a Peanut's going to come in around 2 3/4 or so, roughly. Some of these vary from the way that they're handmade. Some of them are a little longer than others. It depends how that they sand the knife. But around 2 3/4 or so, maybe just a speck longer. But the Peanut is going to have half stops again, just like the Mini Trapper. It's going to have half stops where the blade will stop in the 90 position. It's going to have 2 blades. You're going to have your main clip point blade. You can see the Peanut's a small knife, but it feels really good in the hand. And you're going to have a secondary pin blade. And again, a wonderful design on that pin blade, a very useful blade. Now for our number here. See if I can get it to focus. You can see it's 6220. The 6 is referring to these red bone handles. The 2 to the fact that this is a 2-bladed knife. And 20 is the pattern for the Peanut. 6220. And this is a light little knife, and it's a great little knife. This is a good knife if you're looking for a light, small knife to carry. But these right here are some of Case's most popular models out there, as far as I can tell. I'm sure I missed 1 or 2. Case makes tons of different patterns and models, and a lot of them are really good. But as far as I can tell, these are the most popular. Y'all have a good day out there, and you keep your knives sharp.